Well, let's get started now that we're all here. My name is Bob Tevis. I'm a columnist for Classic Images magazine. I'm going to be heading up the conversation today with these beautiful women next to me. If you looked at your program, this is called The Interview with Our Favorite Women. And while as a single man, I think I can get away with that. I don't know if you guys who are with your girlfriends or wives would say the same thing, but I think we could all agree that these are three fantastic actresses. And I'm going to just reintroduce them from my left to, in that direction there, Kathy Garver, who is Sissy in Family Affair. Luciana Paluzzi, who was the Fiona Volpe in Thunderball. And Britt Ekland, who of course is in one of my favorite films, After the Fox, which will be screened tonight. So I'm going to start by asking them some questions. I'm going to allow some time at the end for the audience to ask questions, so if you could just bear with us for the next about 30, 40 minutes while we talk to them, and then you can ask your own questions. So let me start off with Kathy, because she's next to me. Kathy, I just want to talk to you about your starting of your career. I noticed on the internet that said that you were in I'll Cry Tomorrow. I don't know if that was really the start of your career.
No, actually, the very first thing I did was The Night of the Hunter. Do any of you remember that?
Absolutely.
Yes. Charles Laughton was the director, and that was his first and last directorial duty.
Yes.
Because even though this film with Robert Mitchum and Lillian Gish and a host of wonderful character actors came out, it didn't get very good reviews. And so he was so taken aback because he had spent so much time to make an absolutely fabulous film, and so he vowed never to direct again. And this film has now become, it's like number 10 on the best horror film that has ever been made. And it was just very ahead of its time. It was just this
Absolutely.
German impressionistic film in black and white that was very evocative of senses and sounds, and so that was the reason. And I had been a Megland kitty since the age of 3, and this is where Shirley Temple was discovered. And so I was singing and dancing at the Shrine Auditorium, and my aunt called. They said, "Oh, they need someone for this film, The Night of the Hunter." The main little girl's role, Sally Jane Bruce, had already been filmed, but I became her double and her stand-in, and then I appeared at the end. And she was just 6 and I was 8, having had all this training as a Megland kitty and 2 big brothers, so I was ready to tackle going down the river and climbing up into the hayloft, and that was my first thing.
Wow. You know, if you haven't seen the film, it's a truly frightening movie. It's one of the most frightening movies, I think, out there, because it tells the story through the eyes of the children, basically.
Right,
But,
and that's why it's number 10 on that
absolutely.
wonderful list.
You also were a slave in the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
And how'd that come about?
Well, I'd been working at home, slaving, doing dishes. I was actually just hired as an extra. This was like my second role, and I was on the set of Paramount, and I was to ride in a little wagon along the dirt road at the beginning of the Exodus scene, and then all of a sudden, as I'm trying to do this scene, I hear this big voice call out, "Don't let that little girl's face get in the camera." And I said, "Who is that?" I said, "Is that God?" We were doing the 10 Commandments. It turned out it wasn't God, but the cinematic deity of Cecil B. DeMille.
Second in command.
Yes. So he was kind of wont to do this when he was doing films. He would see somebody and said, "Well, we need to add a little bit more human element to this great big epic." So I did the scene with a little blanket over my head, and then I talked to him after he descended on his big crane, and he wrote scenes into the movie for me with Charlton Heston. And so I hate to say this, but it is the 60th anniversary of 10 Commandments this year.
Oh.
Yes, and in order to commemorate that, they used the picture of Charlton Heston and myself on a USPS pictorial postmark. So now I'm really commemorated in that movie. Yes.
Well,
as a Charlton.
If I could move on for a moment to Luciana, because you gave me a great transition. The great director Cecil B. DeMille, but you worked with a great director as well, Fritz Lang, in a film that we showed the other night here at the convention.
Oh, why did you ask me to come and see it?
I'm sorry about that.
I never saw it.
You never saw? Maybe, I don't know if you want to, because actually the version we had was an American International version that was really chopped up.
Oh.
But you were memorable for the part of Barani, the servant of Deborah Paget.
I was a slave also.
She was a slave also, so you started off as a slave as well.
I was a slave, but it was quite an interesting. I never met Fritz Lang. I arrived in India, and he's sitting down, and because Deborah Paget, that I'm so sorry that she couldn't make it, because I would have loved to see her after 2,000 years that since we made the picture, was very short. She's not a tall, big girl.
Yeah.
So they take me to Fritz Lang for the first time, and he's sitting down. And he looks up at me, and the first thing, he doesn't say after I traveled, I don't know how many hours to get there, he doesn't say, "Hi, how was your trip? Nice meeting you," nothing. He looks at me and he says, "You're too tall." And I said, "Maybe if you get up from your chair, we would be equal."
There you go. Good for you.
I was just, I don't know, and I was so young. I mean, I hardly talked. I was so shy. So it was like I was 16, something like that. So after that, we became friends. But he was a very unusual man, very tough on the set. I saw him make actors, people of the crew, cry.
Really?
Cry, but
Wow.
I mean tears coming down.
Wow.
He was so nasty. Then at night, he would be an angel. We would go out and have dinner, and it was wonderful. And during the day, he was terrifying.
Wow.
If you missed your mark, but that much, he would be yelling and screaming and insulting you and being. So
Wow.
that was my experience with Fritz Lang. But
They would shoot me if I don't ask you about James Bond. So how was your experience working on Thunderball?
well, totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different. First of all, I had already made a couple of pictures with Terence Young, the director, and he was like my father. He actually traveled a weekend to give me away to my husband of now 36, almost 37 years.
Wow.
And he came from Rome. I got married in New York. He came during the weekend. He was shooting Incheon, and he left the set, came to give me away to my husband, and flew back to Rome.
Wow.
That's the rapport that we had. He was like my father. He was the one that I adored him.
Wow.
And the fourth Bond picture, they already knew that they were making a lot of money. The first one, I assume, was not like that. But on the fourth already was having all the benefits of everything is going to be fine. Yeah. So we were on the set, the clouds come, and you're sitting there for 2-3 hours. Usually on a set, when that happens, everybody goes, crazy, because you look at the watch and say, "Oh my God, it's another $100,000, $200,000 going out the window. We have to wait." Not on that picture. We had dressing rooms. They rented the yacht. So at night we could change whenever, because we had night scenes where we had to work all night, and we had our own room. Terence had built a tent. He didn't build it. Somebody built a tent on the beach, like a white, beautiful tent where we would have dinner. And dinner was always starting with champagne. And it was like another world. It was a James Bond world. And that's because Terence was James Bond.
Terence was James Bond,
He's
of course.
He's the one that had all the little nuances and all the funny little things that he put in. And I miss that in the pictures today.
True.
Because I think that the new Bond pictures are fabulous to look at and all of that. And especially the last one was great. But they missed those little touches of fun that was there at the beginning.
Sean Connery says that Terence Young trained him to be James Bond, basically.
He did. I saw it happen on the set
Wow.
every day.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, could you?
You tell me now?
Is it better? Can you hear her now? Okay.
I have to repeat
Is that
everything?
better? Is that better?
Gosh. No. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Wait a minute. Okay. Oh my gosh, sorry.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. So let me now move on in the directorial concepts again with Britt Ekland, who is in a film that's going to be shown tonight at 8 o'clock here in the movie room. After the Fox is one of my favorite comedies, and you worked with Vittorio De Sica.
Yes, I did.
Another great director.
A fantastic director. Very. He didn't speak a word of English.
Really?
So, and his wife didn't speak English either. So we had to have translators.
So he would direct you through a translator.
Yeah, everything through a translator.
How did that work?
Well, there's a film.
That's right. Okay.
So
all right. But
obviously-
did you find that difficult to work then, or?
No, I was very young.
Gotcha.
And I think if you start very young, you just learn to take cues and look at people. And because I was married to Peter Sellers, he taught me how to hit my mark.
Got you.
And where my headlight was. And when you're that young, you just learn it. It's automatic. You don't have to sort of go like this and look for your mark. You can see it through, and you know that, you're actresses. You see it at the bottom of your eyes, and you can feel your headlight. You know, you don't sort of go this way and half the face. You kind of, and you don't shadow your opponent,
Yes.
so to speak.
I'm glad you mentioned Peter Sellers because I read a remark that I was
How
gonna-
could I not mention him?
Well,
I was bloody well married to him.
That's very true. But I read a quote of yours from the Manchester Evening News in 2007 where you said, "Men are like handbags. They can look great on the outside, but inside they're often empty." And I was
Not
wondering.
my handbag, trust me, it's full.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about Peter Sellers?
What would you like to know?
Very good. How did you feel? Well, obviously you had the.
Okay, well, I'll be quick.
Go ahead.
I met him, I was signed by 20th Century Fox for a 7-year contract. And I started my first film in London, and that was in I was signed in 1963, and they sent me to London in January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, something like that. I was skiing in St. Moritz, because skiing was my passion. And I flew to London, because my dad called me in St. Moritz and said, "There is a telegram here from 20th Century Fox, and they are offering you 7-year contract." And he was literally shaking. And so I flew to London. They put me up at Dorchester Hotel, which is probably the most famous hotel in the entire world. And they put me in a room size towards the back entrance where you go down to the garage where all the garbage cans are. So all night and day it's like this. And there I am, and I go down at 8 in the morning, and I have my hair in a chignon.
Okay.
And I have an Alice band. You all know what an Alice band is. They don't exist anymore. I think Alice died, but it's a thing that goes like that. And I'm laying like this on the piano. And the photograph came out in London. There was 2 evening papers in those days, and it was the Evening Standard and the Evening News, and it came out in the Evening Standard, in the Evening News. And it was a front page. And I lived on the top floor, and Peter Sellers lived in the Oliver Messler suite, which is probably the most famous suite in the whole world.
Gotcha.
Because Lord Snowdon's uncle, Oliver Messler, had decorated it. And so he sent his valet to my room, and I was in the bath. And I just wrapped the towel, and I peek out like this. And he said, "Yes, Mr. Sellers is living in Oliver Messler's suite. He would like to invite you for a drink." Now, I had heard and read about him, but not as an actor. He'd been a judge at the Miss Universe contest in Miami. and he had like a flirtation with a Swedish contestant.
Okay.
I mean, that's what the gossip magazines in Sweden said. I
Okay.
don't know if, I never asked him if it was true. So I was very wary. So I buttoned up to here, put lots and lots of clothes in, went in there, had a glass of champagne, and then he said, do you want to go to the movies? I said, yes. He took me to Leicester Square at the Odeon, where
Yes.
the Pink Panther was showing, and
Yeah.
we went in, saw the movie. So he made sure that I knew exactly who he was. So that's how I met him, and then we fell in love, and I had to go back to New York to do publicity for
Yes.
20th Century Fox, and then he called this where I was filming,
Yes.
and he proposed marriage, and
that was
I
it.
flew back a week later, and we married 10 days later. Don't do that!
You heard it here. Don't do that.
So from the moment you met him, 10 days or
Yes.
Let me use that as a transition back to Fiona, back to Luciana. Excuse
I
me.
can't hear you.
I'm going to use that as a transition back to Luciana because she appeared in a bolting film with Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Carlton Brown to the FO. It was originally at the time I think it was entitled The Man in the Cocked Hat. I don't know if do you have any recollections of working with him?
Yes, I do.
Would you like, thank you. Would you like to share that with us?
I don't remember what I ate yesterday, but yes, I remember working.
What did you eat yesterday? No, seriously. Would you like to share any memories or recollections?
Sorry. I remember him being kind of aloof, but I was told by Britt that was because he was aloof. It was because he was in a world of his own. So he wasn't very communicative in between the takes. I had more fun with what's his name, the other actor that was in there?
Terry Thomas?
Terry Thomas, with whom I made another picture after. But he was unapproachable.
Really?
He was not, he was not a really, am I insulting? No.
I don't care.
Oh.
You got to say what you feel.
Yeah, that's it. I answered.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't know how I transitioned from that to green slime, but I do want to touch on that because I was wondering how a nice Italian actress made it over to Japan to make this movie.
Just sheer luck. I had the same problem. The director, who was very famous for doing this kind of science fiction movies, and by the way, the picture was called Battle Beyond the Stars when
That's right.
that's
Yes,
the
okay.
contract I signed. It was a little bit, the sound was a little bit nicer than the green slime. but we went to Japan to make the movie, and Kenji Fujisaki didn't speak a word of English either.
Nothing.
So it was everything from English into Japanese, from Japanese into English, Japanese, and that was a little bit of slowing down. But he was adorable, and I never thought that the picture would become like a cult picture.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a great time doing it. If you think about it, at that time when I did it, the special effects were not anything like today.
True.
So in that period, it was like kind of unusual and well done.
Thank you. And I'm transitioning back to Kathy for a moment because Kathy was also involved in some science fiction work because of your voiceover work.
Yes. After my movie career, and then I segued into Family Affair, and then I segued into doing a lot of stage. And so I said, okay, the life of an actress is very interesting. And I have chronicled this in my second book, which was Surviving Sissy. I'm here, obviously, to tell you about that. And then I have Ex-Child Stars. But when there was like a little gap, I thought, well, okay, I don't have a movie, I don't have a TV show, I'm not doing a play, what else can I do? And so I was with an agent in Los Angeles, and they said, well, we want you to go out on an audition for a voiceover. I said, well, what's that? What does that mean? So I went on this audition, and it was for tuna fish. And so the nice gentleman said, say, I like tuna fish. And I said, I like tuna fish. And he said, now say it a different way. Oh, I like tuna fish. Oh, how about another way? I like tuna fish. He said, all right, thank you very much. So I said, well, I don't know how to do this. So I took lessons, and it was something that I really enjoy doing, and that has just followed me through my career. I've done like 5 animated series, and one that I'm most, I guess, well known for is Firestar in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And I have a little sound booth in my home. Oh, this could go on, but anyway, I have a 25-year-old son, as old as I am, who lives in a basement with his girlfriend. And the basement has 2 rooms. And my little booth was in one of the rooms. And one time I was away on a lovely little trip like this. I come back, I go into the garage, and there is my studio. And I says, what happened? He says, well, there was too much traffic with you going in there, and you were invading our privacy. Yes, the kids who pay $100 a month in rent. So he had disassembled my studio and moved it to the garage. So I said, okay, thank you. But yes, I have done a lot of, and I've done like 70 audiobooks, which I really like. I will tell you one short story. Not only do I narrate them, but I direct. So I was directing Amy Tan. Amy Tan is this wonderful author, and yeah, she's terrific. And well, that could go on, so I'll tell you the bottom line. My husband says, just do the bottom line, Kathy. Okay, so the bottom line is we were nominated for an Audie Award, which is like an Oscar of the spoken word. So I called her and I said, Amy, isn't this great? We won the Audie. And she said, yeah, but when they first called, I thought I'd won a car.
Well, it sounds like you have a regular family affair going on in your home.
Yes, for sure.
But I can't let you go without asking about Family Affair, obviously. What's one of your favorite recollections of working on that series? It went for 6 years.
Well, it only went for 5, so I would have had a better recollection.
Okay, than I have. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Just the whole experience was wonderful. It's always nice for an actress to have a steady job. And I thought, oh, well, all right, I can do this. And the kids kind of grew up on the set and during the series. I don't have a specific recollection. I thought it was just a fabulous experience the whole way through.
Got you. And you mentioned your book. You also have written a cookbook. Right?
Yes, my first book was the Family Affair Cookbook. So anytime that something was mentioned about food, I have a recipe for it in the book, which is nice. And then my Surviving Sissy, and my latest one is Ex-Child Stars, Where Are They Now? Which was sold out, but my wonderful agent brought some with me for this show. And then the sequel to that is going to be Ex-Child Stars, Movie Stars, because the first one is just TV. And then I have another one called The Hollywood Letters to a Navy SEAL, which will be coming out next year as well.
Thank you. And Britt is also an author. Am I right? You've written True Britt?
I've written my autobiography, which ended in 1979, which is a long time ago. And I've written a novel. And I've written a beauty book.
I was going to say you've written a beauty and fitness book too, right? Sensual Beauty and How to Achieve It is another one of your books?
Yeah, it's not a fitness book. It's a beauty.
It's a beauty book. Okay.
But I did do, it was like a slew of famous people doing exercise videos. And I did one as well.
Gotcha. Thank you. And back to Luciana again. You also did some work for The Man from U.N.C.L.E. You did one of the episodes, as well as some episodes that were turned into a couple of their films, actually, right? To Trap a Spy and The Venetian Affair.
Yes.
Any recollections on working on The Man from U.N.C.L.E.? Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, how about with? I still have some other questions. How about with Captain Nemo and The Underwater City, working with Robert Ryan? Any recollections there?
That was tough.
It was tough.
That was tough. That was tough because I'm not a fantastic swimmer. I swim like a ducky. And I had a scene where I was supposed to like shoot out from the pool. So they were pulling me down, and then they would, while they were preparing the scene, they would just say, "Okay, are you ready? Are you ready?" Yes. Pull her down so that then they could release me and come out like this from the water. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they would forget that I was underneath there because the cameraman or said, "Oh, give me that, I need the," or whatever. And I would be underneath there and I couldn't breathe, obviously. I was underwater. So that was not fun at all. Aside from that, though, the rest was beautiful. It was fine. And I was working in England, which is one of my favorite places to be. So it was fine. But that scene, I remember that day was traumatic.
Was dangerous.
I've become claustrophobic since then because.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before I open it up to the fans to ask their questions, let me start with Britt. Is there anything you would like to tell your fans that they're here today?
I'd like to thank them for being so kind to come to see me after all these years. Thank you.
Luciana, same question to you.
I would like to say the same thing. Thank you, and then I'm very happy to be here. And it's a wonderful place. I would like to see more of it, but as long as I see you, it's fine.
Thank you, Luciana. And Kathy?
I agree as well. It's always wonderful to meet new people in new places, and everyone that has come up to my table has been so warm and engaging, and I too thank you so much for coming to this event.
So now it's time for you to ask some questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir, this one here.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Kathy, I believe you also did Mrs. Mitchell on Dennis the Menace cartoons.
That I also what?
Dennis the Menace, you played his mother.
Yeah, he
yes,
said you played
I
on
did.
Dennis the Menace cartoon.
Yes, that's correct. And that was another voiceover animation that I did, and I played Mrs. Menace.
While I'm at it, I wanted to ask you, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of times when you were on TV, you worked with June Lockhart. Did you enjoy working with her?
Very much so. And actually, she was one of the reasons that I think I got the job on Family Affair. They wanted an 18-year-old who looked 15. I did not tell them I was 20 at the time. But the year before, I had done an episode of Death Valley Days where I played a 12-year-old. So I guess being like 5'1" and having kind of a baby face helps play younger. Yeah. So June Lockhart was in that episode, and I was playing Isadora Duncan in that episode of Death Valley Day, and then they screened it.
Their episode had a picture of you and Buffy's and Jody's mother, and it looked so much like June.
Well, she did an episode of Family Affair.
I know that.
Yeah, right.
I remember that.
Yes, that's right. And so when they screened that episode of Death Valley Day, they deduced, well, since she can play a 12-year-old, I'm sure she can play a 15-year-old. So that was my first meeting of June Lockhart, and then I did that episode, and then later on we were on a talk show together, and I had my child, obviously, rather late in life, but we're sitting and we're talking, we're having a nice thing, and then she said, "Oh, you're pregnant, aren't you?" I'm thinking, oh, well, thank you very much, June, for announcing this to everyone who I haven't really told it. But yes, June is very close, and I like her a lot, and her daughter, Annie.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you in front.
Yes, Luciana, can you tell us about a Western that you did with Rod Taylor and Lewis Haywood?
Chaka?
It's Chaka, yes. Can you tell us about Chaka?
Yes. Well, I fell in love with Rod, but it was because he was such an incredible, nice human being. And as tough as he looked, instead he had a heart of gold and nice to everybody. Oh, by